Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare $quarter coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today, we're going to explore one of the most iconic and patriotic coins ever struck by the United States Mint, the 1776 to 1976 bicentennial quarter. This is not just any quarter. It's a coin that was minted to celebrate 200 years of American independence, and it's one of the most recognized coins in the history of U.S. currency. At first glance, it might seem like a common piece of change, but if you know what to look for, this quarter could be worth far more than 25 cents. So, stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market values and auction prices that some of these quarters have sold for. The bicentennial quarter was released in 1975 and 1976 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of America's independence. Interestingly, no quarters dated 1975 exist. All the quarters struck in both 1975 and 1976 carry the dual date of 1776 to 1976. This makes the coin instantly recognizable. Instead of the traditional eagle on the back, these coins feature a unique reverse design, a colonial drummer with a torch surrounded by 13 stars. That image was chosen through a national design competition, and it gives this coin a special place in American history, symbolizing patriotism and freedom. Now, because these coins were minted in the hundreds of millions, most people assume they're common and not worth collecting. But here's where things get exciting: condition, composition, and errors can make a massive difference in value. The U.S. Mint produced bicentennial quarters in both copper-nickel clad and in 40% silver versions. The silver quarters were included in special collector sets, and these already hold a premium compared to the regular clad versions. But it doesn't stop there. Collectors pay close attention to mint marks as well. Quarters struck in Philadelphia bear no mint mark, while those struck in Denver have a D, and the ones struck in San Francisco have an S. The San Francisco Mint produced both proof coins and silver collector coins, which can carry significant value if kept in pristine condition. Proof coins, especially, with their mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, are highly desirable to collectors, but the real thrill comes from the rare errors and varieties that slipped through during minting. There are bicentennial quarters with double die obverse, where the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty" show doubling under magnification. There are also off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing, and even coins struck on the wrong planchet, like being struck on dime stock, making them smaller and lighter. These rare mistakes make each coin unique and highly sought after. Error coins like these can transform a regular quarter into a collector's dream. Condition also plays a huge role. Coins that have been heavily circulated are usually worth only face value, but uncirculated examples, those that still shine as if they just left the mint, are in another league. High-grade bicentennial quarters graded by professional services can bring in strong premiums, and if you're lucky enough to have one in near-perfect condition, especially with an error or struck in silver, you could be holding onto a small treasure. And now for the part you've been waiting for, the value. While common circulated bicentennial quarters might only be worth face value, high-grade silver examples, proof coins, or rare mint errors have sold in auctions for thousands. Some of the finest known bicentennial quarters have reached values as high as $10,000, making this coin not only historic but also potentially very profitable for collectors. So the next time you come across a 1776 to 1976 quarter, don't just brush it off as loose change. Take a careful look. You might discover a rare silver strike, a valuable proof, or even an incredible mint error hiding right in plain sight. This is what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know when history and value will collide right in your pocket. Top 2. We're diving into a coin from the early 1980s that many people overlook, but collectors know it has some real hidden gems: the United States $quarter from 1981. At first glance, this coin may look ordinary, just another Washington quarter that passed through countless hands, but once you learn about its history, its rare varieties, and the errors that slipped out of the mint, you'll realize why the 1981 quarter can be far more exciting than it seems. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market prices and even some jaw-dropping auction values for this coin. The 1981 quarter comes from a very interesting period in American coinage. By this time, the U.S. Mint was already several years into striking quarters in copper-nickel clad instead of silver, which had ended in circulation back in 1964. So every 1981 quarter you find is made of copper-nickel with a pure copper core, giving it that familiar reddish edge. Yet, despite being a modern, clad coin, collectors still look for special examples from this year, because rarity isn't always about precious metal, it's often about condition and the unexpected mistakes made during minting. These quarters were struck at 3 different locations: Philadelphia, which used no mint mark; Denver, which used the D mint mark; and San Francisco, which struck special proof coins with the S mint mark. The San Francisco issues are especially fascinating because 1981 was one of the final years the mint was perfecting its modern proof-making techniques. Coins from these proof sets can still be found today, and when they are preserved in perfect condition with sharp, mirror-like surfaces, they can command strong collector interest. Now, let's talk about why the 1981 quarter is more than just another pocket change coin. Collectors always pay attention to rarity, and for this year, it shows up in several ways. First, circulation strikes in top condition are surprisingly hard to find. Many of the quarters from 1981 were used heavily in commerce and have long since lost their luster. Finding one that has been kept safe, uncirculated, and with minimal marks is much more difficult than you'd think. That rarity and condition makes high-grade examples valuable, but the real excitement comes from mint errors and varieties. Some 1981 quarters show doubling, known as double die errors, where inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" can show extra outlines under magnification. Others were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing and the blank surface of the planchet visible. Even more dramatic are wrong planchet errors. Imagine a quarter design struck on a dime blank, making the coin smaller and lighter than it should be. These rare mistakes are incredibly collectible, because each one is unique and tells a story of how it slipped through the minting process. There are also proof varieties to watch for, especially the so-called Type 1 and Type 2 proofs in 1981. The differences can be subtle, but serious collectors know how valuable these varieties can become, especially in perfect condition. Combine that with the fact that proof coins from this era weren't always handled with the greatest care, and you'll see why flawless examples are both rare and desirable. So, how much can a 1981 quarter really be worth today? While most examples you see in pocket change will still be worth face value, the story changes completely for coins in exceptional condition or with rare errors. High-grade 1981 quarters have sold for hundreds, and some rare proof varieties and dramatic mint errors have reached into the thousands at auction. In fact, the highest recorded sales for special examples of this coin have gone up to an incredible $5,000. That's why it pays to look closely at your change. A coin you might overlook could turn out to be something extraordinary. The 1981 quarter is a perfect reminder that every coin has a story, and sometimes, that story makes it worth far more than the number stamped on its face. Top 3, we're looking at the United States quarter dollar from 1986, a coin that most people pass over without a second thought. But for collectors, this year's Washington quarter carries some very exciting possibilities. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal just how much these coins can really sell for on the market, and you may be surprised at the prices collectors are paying. The 1986 quarter comes from the modern clad era of U.S. coinage, when quarters were no longer struck in silver for circulation but instead made of copper-nickel with a copper core. By this point, the Washington quarter design had already been in use for over 50 years, but the appeal of the series had not faded. Millions of these coins were produced for everyday use, but as with so many issues, it's the small details that separate the common coins from the rare treasures. These quarters were struck at 2 main mints for circulation: Philadelphia, which used no mint mark, and Denver, which used the familiar D. Meanwhile, San Francisco produced proof coins marked with an S. Proofs were made exclusively for collectors and featured mirror-like fields and sharp designs. Because they were not intended for everyday use, they were struck with extra care, but that doesn't mean all proofs survived in perfect shape. Flawless proofs from 1986 are much harder to find than people think. Now, what makes the 1986 quarter truly interesting to collectors is the combination of rarity in condition and minting errors. Circulated examples are everywhere, but high-grade, uncirculated pieces, those that still gleam with their original mint luster and show no signs of wear, are much scarcer. Professional grading services carefully evaluate these coins, and only a tiny fraction achieve the top grades that collectors desire. Those high-grade survivors are the ones that bring strong premiums. Then there are the error coins, and this is where the story gets even more exciting. Some 1986 quarters were struck off-center, where part of the design is missing and the blank metal is visible. Others display double die errors, with inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," showing clear doubling under magnification. There are also wrong planchet errors, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. Imagine holding a quarter design struck on a nickel or dime blank. That kind of mistake instantly transforms the coin into a rare and valuable collectible. Collectors also seek out proof varieties. Some 1986 proof quarters from San Francisco show different levels of cameo contrast, ranging from frosted devices against mirrored fields to deep cameo examples with intense contrast. These deep cameo coins, especially in flawless grades, are highly sought after and can bring very impressive prices. All of these factors, condition, mint mark, proof varieties, and minting errors, play a huge role in determining whether your 1986 quarter is worth just face value or something far more exciting. And when we look at the real market, the numbers speak for themselves. While circulated coins are still worth only a quarter, uncirculated high-grade examples, special proof coins, and rare errors have sold for hundreds, and in some cases even into the thousands. At major auctions, certain spectacular 1986 quarters in pristine condition with dramatic errors have reached prices as high as $4,000. That's why it's so important to check your coins carefully. Something as ordinary as a 1986 quarter could be hiding real value, and all it takes is a careful eye to spot the difference between pocket change and a collector's prize. So the next time you see one of these coins in your change, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. You never know when you might find a treasure hiding in plain sight. Top 4. We're taking a closer look at a coin that many of you probably have seen countless times, but may not realize just how much potential it holds: the United States quarter dollar from 1990. At first glance, it may look like just another Washington quarter, the kind that slips in and out of change without notice. But the truth is, this coin can hide incredible surprises, and some examples are worth far more than just 25 cents. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market prices and some stunning auction results that will make you check your quarters with a fresh perspective. The 1990 quarter was struck during a time when the classic Washington design was still in place, long before the 50-state quarters program took over in 1999. These quarters were produced in large numbers, with the Philadelphia Mint making coins with no mint mark and the Denver Mint stamping the D mark on theirs. San Francisco also struck proof quarters with an S mint mark, intended for collectors and special sets. On the surface, they may all look very similar, but when it comes to coin collecting, details matter, and the 1990 quarter has some very interesting details indeed. One of the first things collectors pay attention to is condition. Most 1990 quarters were used heavily in circulation, and by now, many are worn, scratched, or dulled. But coins that escape circulation and remain in pristine, uncirculated condition are a different story altogether. Those coins, often kept safe in rolls or sets, are much harder to find today, and high-grade examples graded by professional services can bring in strong premiums. For collectors, condition is everything, and the 1990 quarter is no exception. Then we come to the real excitement: mint errors. The 1990 quarter has been found with some fascinating mistakes that slipped through the minting process. There are off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and blank metal is visible. There are double die errors, where inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" show extra outlines under magnification. Wrong planchet errors are especially thrilling. Imagine finding a quarter struck on a dime planchet, smaller and lighter than it should be. These error coins are rare, unique, and highly desirable because no two are ever exactly alike. Proof coins from San Francisco also hold special interest. In 1990, the Mint produced proof quarters with a frosted cameo finish, showing sharp contrast between the raised designs and the mirrored background. Deep cameo examples are particularly prized, especially when they remain flawless. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Some 1990 proof quarters exist without the S mint mark at all. These no mint mark proofs are extremely rare and can command serious value in the marketplace. For collectors, finding one of these is like striking gold. So whether you're looking through everyday change, examining old proof sets, or searching coin rolls, the 1990 quarter offers plenty of opportunities for exciting discoveries. It's a perfect example of how even modern coins from the late 20th century can carry surprising collector value if you know what to look for. And now for the moment you've been waiting for, the value. While most circulated 1990 quarters are still worth just face value, high-grade uncirculated examples, rare proof varieties, and dramatic mint errors can bring in serious money. In fact, some of the finest and rarest 1990 quarters have sold at auction for thousands, with certain spectacular examples reaching up to $3,000. So don't underestimate the coin sitting in your pocket or in that old jar at home. The 1990 quarter might look ordinary, but hidden among them are rare treasures waiting to be discovered. Top 5. We're stepping back to the late 1970s to talk about the United States quarter dollar from 1978. At first glance, this coin seems like just another Washington quarter that's been passed around in pocket change for decades. But if you look closely and know what to search for, you'll see why this year's quarter has captured the attention of collectors. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market values and actual auction prices that some of these coins have reached. You might be surprised at just how much money a 1978 quarter can bring. The 1978 Washington quarter comes from a time before the famous 50-state quarters program, back when the traditional Washington design had been in use for more than 40 years. These coins were struck in large numbers at the Philadelphia Mint, which placed no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which used the D mint mark. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof coins with an S mint mark for collectors. While that might sound ordinary, what makes the 1978 quarter truly fascinating is how condition, mint errors, and rare varieties turn an everyday coin into a collectible gem. First, let's talk about condition. By now, most 1978 quarters have been through decades of circulation. They've been scratched, worn down, and lost their shine. But finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition is no easy task. High-grade coins with strong luster, sharp details, and no distracting marks are scarce. For collectors, these top-quality examples are always in demand, because so few have survived the test of time untouched. Now, let's move into the exciting part, mint errors and varieties. The 1978 quarter is known for some interesting mistakes that slipped past quality control at the mint. Some examples show off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing and the blank surface of the coin is exposed. Others feature double dies, where inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," appear doubled when viewed under magnification. These double die errors are among the most desirable, because they're dramatic and easy to spot if you know what to look for. There are also examples struck on wrong planchets. Imagine a quarter design pressed onto a nickel or dime blank, smaller, lighter, and completely unique. These rare errors are the kinds of coins that send collectors into bidding wars, because they're true minting accidents that can't be replicated. Even small striking mistakes or die cracks can add to a coin's appeal, making each one a unique piece of history. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint add another layer of interest. These were specially made for collectors and struck with extra care to produce sharp details and mirror-like fields. But not all proof coins survived in perfect shape. Flawless deep cameo examples, where the frosted design stands out boldly against the reflective background, are much harder to find today and can bring significant premiums in the market. When you put all of these factors together, condition, mint mark, proof varieties, and mint errors, you start to see why the 1978 quarter is more than just an old coin. It's a piece of history that can hold surprising value in the right circumstances. And now for the moment you've been waiting for, the value. While most 1978 quarters you find in circulation are still worth only face value, rare examples in exceptional condition, unique errors, and flawless proofs have sold for impressive amounts. In fact, some of the most desirable 1978 quarters have reached auction prices as high as $5,000. So the next time you come across a 1978 quarter in your change or in an old coin jar, don't overlook it. Take a closer look. You could be holding something far more valuable than you realize. Top 6. We're going back to the early 1970s, to explore a coin that many people overlook, but serious collectors know it has incredible potential, the United States quarter dollar from 1973. It may seem like just another Washington quarter, but there's so much more beneath the surface. Stick with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market prices and some jaw-dropping auction records that make this coin worth hunting for. The 1973 Washington quarter carries on the familiar design featuring George Washington on the obverse and the majestic eagle on the reverse. Struck at 3 different mints, the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, the Denver Mint with the D, and the San Francisco Mint with the S, on proof coins, this coin might look common at first. But the truth is, not all 1973 quarters are created equal, and that's what makes this year so exciting for collectors. One of the biggest factors in value is condition. Most 1973 quarters that have been circulating for over 50 years are scratched, worn, and lack their original luster. But if you happen to find one that has survived in pristine, uncirculated condition, the story changes completely. Sharp strikes, bright mint luster, and a lack of contact marks can make a huge difference, because high-grade examples are not easy to come by today. Collectors pay special attention to coins graded at the top levels, and those pieces often attract fierce competition. Now let's get into what makes the 1973 quarter truly fascinating, the errors and varieties. Minting mistakes from this year are some of the most thrilling finds for collectors. Off-center strikes are among the most dramatic, where part of the design is missing because the coin was not perfectly aligned during the strike. Another sought-after error is the double die, where inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" appear doubled, creating a clear, eye-catching effect under magnification. These kinds of coins are not only rare, but also highly collectible because they show a visible mistake that slipped through the mint's quality control. There are also wrong planchet errors, where a quarter design accidentally gets struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, like a dime or a nickel. These coins are lighter, smaller, and instantly stand out as something extraordinary. Because they are so scarce, they're like treasure for error collectors, and they often bring impressive premiums. Even subtle errors, such as die cracks or clipped planchets, add a unique character to a coin and can increase its value. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint add another dimension to the story. These specially made coins were struck with polished dies, giving them mirror-like fields and sharp, frosted details. But not all proof coins are equal. Deep cameo examples, where Washington's portrait looks frosty and stands out against a highly reflective background, are much harder to find in perfect condition. Collectors are always on the hunt for these flawless proof strikes, because they showcase the mint's craftsmanship at its best. When you combine all of these factors, the mint location, condition, errors, and proof varieties, the 1973 quarter becomes far more than just an ordinary coin. It's a reminder of how even in modern times, mistakes and high-quality strikes can turn a pocket piece into a collectible prize. Now, let's talk about the part you've been waiting for, the value. While the average 1973 quarter you might find in your pocket change is still worth only 25 cents, the rare ones are a different story. Depending on condition and rarity, some of these quarters have sold for hundreds, and in the most exceptional cases, even crossed into the thousands. At auction, pristine examples and dramatic error coins have brought prices as high as $5,000. So the next time you're going through your change, or searching an old coin jar, pay attention to those 1973 quarters. What looks like an ordinary coin could actually be hiding a story of rarity, beauty, and real value. Top 7. We're traveling back to the mid-1960s, a fascinating time in American coin history, to uncover the secrets of the United States quarter dollar from 1966. At first glance, it might look like any other Washington quarter, but this coin has a special place in collecting because of its history, its unique characteristics, and the exciting errors that make it highly sought after. So stay tuned, because by the end I'll reveal the real market prices and some surprising auction results that show just how valuable this quarter can be. Now, the 1966 quarter is a coin born out of a major transition. Just a year before, in 1965, the U.S. Mint stopped using silver in quarters due to rising silver prices and public hoarding of coins. Instead, they moved to a copper-nickel clad composition, which is what we still use today. The 1966 quarter is one of those early clad coins, and because of the changes in production, the Mint made some interesting decisions that collectors still talk about today. One of the biggest differences is that no quarters from 1965, 1966, or 1967 carry a mint mark. This was intentional, because the Mint wanted to discourage collectors from hoarding coins based on where they were made. So, no matter whether your 1966 quarter was struck in Philadelphia or Denver, it will not have a mint mark, but what really makes the 1966 quarter interesting are the varieties and mint errors. This was a period of heavy production, and the Mint struck millions of quarters quickly to keep up with demand. With such pressure on the presses, mistakes were bound to happen. Collectors have found 1966 quarters with off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin was struck outside the normal alignment. Others show double strikes, where the design appears stamped twice, creating a dramatic and unusual look. One of the most exciting errors is the double die variety. On some 1966 quarters, you can see clear doubling on the inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust," or even on the date itself. These double dies are always in demand because they're so easy to see, even without magnification. Another fascinating error is when a 1966 quarter is struck on the wrong planchet, like a dime or a foreign coin blank. These coins are instantly lighter or smaller than normal, and they're extremely rare, making them prized finds in the collecting world. Condition, of course, plays a huge role in value. Most 1966 quarters have been through decades of circulation, showing heavy wear and scratches. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, with its original mint luster and sharp details, you're looking at something special. Collectors especially value coins that grade near the top, because flawless examples from this period are not easy to find. High-grade pieces, particularly those certified by grading companies, can attract serious competition. Another unique aspect of the 1966 quarter is the existence of special mint sets. Since the U.S. Mint did not make proof coins in 1965, 1966, or 1967, they instead issued special mint sets, often called SMS coins. These coins were struck with extra care, giving them a better finish than circulation strikes, but not quite the mirror-like polish of a proof. Some SMS quarters from 1966 show strong, deep cameo contrast, with frosty devices standing out against reflective fields. These are much harder to find, and collectors love them because they look stunning and carry a touch of rarity. When you put all of this together, the lack of mint marks, the transitional history, the fascinating errors, and the unique SMS issues, you can see why the 1966 quarter is more than just pocket change. It's a snapshot of American coinage at a turning point, and that makes it a must-have for many collectors. Now here's the exciting part. While most 1966 quarters you'll find in circulation are still only worth their face value of 25 cents, rare examples tell a completely different story. High-grade uncirculated coins and SMS varieties can sell for hundreds of dollars. And when you add in dramatic mint errors or double dies, the value skyrockets. Some of the most exceptional pieces have sold at auction for thousands of dollars. So, the next time you come across a 1966 quarter, take a closer look. What may seem like an ordinary coin could actually be a hidden treasure with a fascinating history and serious collector value. Top 8. We're diving into the fascinating world of the United States quarter dollar from 1995. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary Washington quarter you've seen countless times, but don't be fooled, this coin hides some surprises. Some of these 1995 quarters can be incredibly valuable because of rarity, condition, and especially minting errors that collectors chase after with passion. So stick around, because by the end of this video, I'll reveal the actual market values and even some jaw-dropping auction prices that might make you check your pocket change a little more carefully. The 1995 quarter belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series, which started way back in 1932. By the 1990s, quarters were everywhere in circulation, but what makes 1995 especially interesting is that it was one of the last years before the United States Mint launched the 50-state quarters program in 1999. That program completely changed collecting, but the quarters from the years just before it now hold a special nostalgic appeal. They represent the end of an era, a final chapter before one of the biggest shifts in U.S. coin collecting. Now, let's talk about the design. On the obverse, we have the familiar bust of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. By 1995, this design had been used for more than 6 decades, but it still carried the same timeless look collectors love. On the reverse, you'll see the bold eagle with its wings spread, clutching arrows and olive branches, a design that was about to be replaced only a few years later. This eagle reverse is iconic, and for many collectors, quarters like the 1995 issue are the last breath of a classic design before the modern series took over. Here's where things get even more exciting: the errors and varieties. The U.S. Mint struck millions of quarters in 1995 at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, but as always, not every coin came out perfect. And those mistakes are exactly what can make a 1995 quarter worth far more than 25 cents. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die variety. Collectors have discovered 1995 quarters with doubling visible on inscriptions like "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or even the date itself. These double dies are dramatic, and because they are relatively scarce, they can attract strong attention when they appear at auction. Another exciting error is the off-center strike, where the design is shifted noticeably, leaving part of the coin blank. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more desirable it is, but that's not all. Wrong planchet errors exist for the 1995 quarter as well. These are coins struck on the wrong metal blank, like a nickel or even a foreign coin planchet. They are instantly unusual, lighter or heavier than normal, sometimes missing part of the design because the planchet was too small. Collectors absolutely love these because each one is unique, and they can sell for a small fortune. Condition also plays a massive role in value. The truth is, most 1995 quarters you'll see today are well worn from circulation. They've been in pockets, purses, vending machines, and cash registers for decades, and the details are often worn smooth. But if you manage to find one in pristine uncirculated condition, with sharp details and full original mint luster, that's when the value really starts to climb. Even more impressive are coins that have been professionally graded at high levels like MS66 or MS67, which are rare because so few have survived without any flaws. And let's not forget about proof coins. In 1995, the San Francisco Mint struck special proof quarters for collectors, featuring deeply mirrored fields and frosted designs. These proof coins are beautiful, but the rarest and most desirable are the ones with strong cameo or deep cameo contrast. Those stand out dramatically and can command a premium in today's market. So, when we put all of this together, the history, the iconic design, the thrilling mint errors, the rarity of high-grade survivors, and the beauty of proof issues, it's clear that the 1995 quarter is far more interesting than most people realize. It might not be as old as some classic coins, but it has all the ingredients of a collectible treasure. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for: the value. While common 1995 quarters in circulation are usually only worth their face value of 25 cents, the rare ones tell a different story. High-grade uncirculated examples and proof coins can bring in strong prices, often in the range of hundreds of dollars. And when it comes to dramatic mint errors, double dies, or wrong planchet strikes, the numbers get even more exciting. Some of these rare 1995 quarters have sold at auction for thousands of dollars, proving that a simple pocket change coin could hide a serious treasure. So the next time you come across a 1995 Washington quarter, don't just toss it into a jar without looking closely. Check the date, examine the details, and pay attention to errors. You never know, you could be holding a piece of history worth far more than you think. Top 9. we're diving into one of the most fascinating and historical coins in modern American history, the United States quarter dollar from 1965. At first glance, this coin might look like an ordinary Washington quarter, but when you look closely, it represents a turning point in U.S. coinage history, and some examples can be surprisingly valuable. So stick with me until the very end, because I'll reveal the real market prices and even some amazing auction results that show why this coin is worth your attention. The 1965 quarter marks a huge change for the U.S. Mint. Before 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper. But because silver prices were rising and people were hoarding coins, the Mint decided to completely change the composition. Starting in 1965, quarters were struck with a copper-nickel clad over a pure copper core, which is the same metal combination still used today. This was the first year of clad quarters, and it created a lot of excitement, confusion, and even controversy at the time. People were still pulling silver coins from circulation, while the new copper-nickel coins were flooding into everyday use. Another thing that makes the 1965 quarter so unique is that it carries no mint mark. The Mint intentionally removed mint marks from all coins between 1965 and 1967 to discourage collectors from hoarding coins by their place of origin. So no matter whether your 1965 quarter was made in Philadelphia or Denver, it will not have a mint mark. This decision makes the coin stand out in the long history of Washington quarters, and it adds another layer of interest for collectors. Now, let's talk about what really excites collectors: the errors and varieties. Because 1965 was such an important transition year, mistakes happened at the Mint, and those mistakes are where the value skyrockets. One of the most famous errors is the 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet from 1964. Imagine finding a quarter dated 1965 that is actually made of silver instead of copper-nickel. These transitional errors happened when leftover silver blanks were accidentally used, and they are extremely rare. If you ever come across a 1965 quarter that looks brighter, shinier, and weighs slightly more than a normal clad coin, you might have a silver transitional error worth thousands of dollars, but that's not the only kind of error. Collectors have also discovered off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't aligned correctly during striking. There are double-struck coins, where the design appears stamped twice, and even wrong planchet errors, where the quarter was struck on a dime blank or a foreign coin blank. Each of these errors tells its own story and adds incredible value. Condition is another huge factor in determining rarity. Most 1,965 quarters spent decades in circulation, bouncing around in pockets, cash registers, and vending machines, so they're often worn and scratched. Finding a 1965 quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition with full luster and sharp details is not easy. Collectors are especially drawn to high-grade examples certified by professional grading companies. Quarters graded MS-66 or MS-67 from 1965 are very tough to find and command strong prices. Proof-like or special mint strike versions also add intrigue. While the Mint didn't produce regular proof sets in 1965, they did release special mint sets, often called SMS coins. These coins have a sharper, more refined strike than circulation coins, and some even display deep cameo contrasts between frosted devices and mirror-like fields. Those coins are stunning, scarce, and extremely desirable among collectors. All of this makes the 1965 quarter a fascinating coin that deserves a closer look. It was the first clad quarter, a coin born from one of the biggest changes in American money history, and the errors and rare varieties from this year can be worth small fortunes. Add to that the challenge of finding high-grade survivors and the appeal of special mint set versions, and you've got a coin that collectors never get tired of hunting for. Now let's get to the exciting part: the value. While most 1965 quarters you see in circulation are only worth their face value of 25 cents, the story is completely different for rare examples. Uncirculated high-grade pieces and SMS varieties can be worth hundreds of dollars. And if you happen to have one of those extremely rare silver transitional errors or dramatic mint mistakes, the value can soar into the thousands. In fact, some of the finest examples have sold at auction for over $7,000. So the next time you spot a 1965 quarter in your change, don't overlook it. Take the time to check its weight, condition, and details carefully. You could be holding a hidden treasure from a historic turning point in U.S. coinage. Top 10 and last rare coin, we're going to talk about the United States $quarter from 1979. At first glance, it might seem like just another Washington quarter, something you've probably spent without a second thought. But let me tell you, the 1979 quarter is much more than just loose change. With unique varieties, striking errors, and high-grade examples that can be worth serious money, this coin is one that collectors and treasure hunters should never ignore. So stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal the real market values and auction records that prove just how special this coin can be. The 1979 quarter is part of the long-running Washington Quarter series, first introduced in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday. By the late 1970s, these coins were still being struck in the copper-nickel-clad composition that had replaced silver in 1965. The obverse features John Flanagan classic portrait of Washington, while the reverse shows the powerful heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, holding arrows and olive branches, a symbol of strength and peace. It's a design that millions of Americans grew up with and still remember fondly. What makes the 1979 quarter stand out for collectors are the subtle details and the surprises that came from the minting process. These coins were produced at multiple mints: Philadelphia with no mint mark, Denver with the D mint mark, and San Francisco with the S mint mark. While Philadelphia and Denver struck circulation coins, San Francisco produced special proof coins for collectors. And here's where things get exciting. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint actually created two different styles of mint marks for proof coins, what collectors call the Type 1 and Type 2 S mint marks. The Type 1 S mint mark has a filled, blob-like appearance, while the Type 2 is sharp and clear. The Type 2 is much scarcer and far more desirable. Proof collectors go crazy for these differences, and having a 1979 S proof with the sharp Type 2 mint mark can make your coin stand out dramatically in terms of value. But it's not just about proof coins. Circulation strikes from Philadelphia and Denver also have their share of varieties and errors. Double die quarters from 1979, where the inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" show noticeable doubling, are especially exciting. These are rare and instantly recognizable under magnification, making them hot targets for collectors. Then there are off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't perfectly aligned during striking. The more dramatic the off-center, the more collectible it becomes. Wrong planchet errors are another incredible find. Some 1979 quarters were struck on dime planchets or other foreign blanks, leading to coins that are undersized, oddly weighted, or missing parts of the design. Each of these errors is a unique piece of minting history and can command high prices. Condition, as always, plays a huge role. Most 1979 quarters in circulation are well worn from decades of use, with scratches and dull surfaces. But if you come across one in mint state, especially one graded MS66 or MS67 by professional grading services, you're holding something quite rare. The higher the grade, the sharper the details, and the more brilliant the luster, the more collectors are willing to pay. And let's not forget about the proof coins from San Francisco again. These were struck with extra care, featuring mirror-like fields and frosted devices. A flawless deep cameo proof from 1979, especially with the scarcer Type 2 S mint mark, can attract fierce bidding in auctions. These coins are a favorite among serious collectors who want the very best examples of each year. When you put all of this together, the multiple mint marks, the special Type 1 and Type 2 proof varieties, the rare errors, the double dies, and the challenge of finding top-condition survivors, you can see why the 1979 quarter is so much more interesting than many people realize. It's a coin that has history, mystery, and collector excitement all wrapped into one. Now here's the part you've been waiting for, the value. While most 1979 quarters you find in pocket change are only worth their face value of 25 cents, the story changes for rare examples. High-grade mint state coins can sell for several $100s. Proof coins with the scarcer Type 2 S mint mark can reach into the hundreds as well, depending on condition. And when it comes to dramatic mint errors or double dies, the value can jump into the thousands. In fact, some of the most stunning examples of 1979 quarters have sold at auction for more than $3,000. So the next time you see a 1979 quarter, don't pass it by without a closer look. Whether it's a high-grade circulation strike, a special proof with the rare Type 2s, or an error coin with a striking story, it could be much more valuable than you think. If you enjoyed this dive into the world of the 1979 Washington quarter and want to learn more about the hidden treasures in U.S. coins, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another discovery. Thanks for joining me today, and until next time, happy collecting.